Previously Recorded Podcast. All right, welcome to Previously Recorded. I'm your host, RP, as always. And I always go this episode of Previously Recorded is brought to you by, but it's brought to you by nothing. It's brought to you by us. So we are back for our second episode in the Fox Marvel Rewatch series, when we'll be covering X2, X-Men United, X-Men 2, whatever you want to call it, the official name. I swear the official name's X2, X-Men United. That was released in 2003. So yeah, that's what we're doing today. To do so, I'm bringing in my fellow students from Xavier School from the Gifted. Bob, welcome back.
What's up? I'm well. I took a short trip down from Westchester, New York.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that the scholarship, worked out and you can be here.
Yeah. My mutant ability is that I can think of tons of ways to kill myself.
Jesus.
I didn't have a good one. I dropped the ball there.
Yeah.
Now I'm embarrassed. So that's what I did. That was my answer.
That was dark, like the cinematography of this film.
Yeah, well, maybe I'm a Magneto guy.
Maybe you are, and who wouldn't be? Welcoming in the other mutant of the podcast, Shane. Welcome back, bud.
Hey, what's up, bud?
You have been kicked out of the school, so this is your final episode. I don't know what to tell you. I'm not.
That's fine. I didn't want to do 25 of these things anyway.
But anyway, how are you guys doing?
Kicked out because he kept getting caught trying to watch Professor Xavier get changed. It wasn't sexual. He just couldn't figure out how he did it.
No, he was just all he could see too was his chest. He just couldn't figure out the bottom half.
Curious. Let's see if he actually had legs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the reason why I explained a little bit last episode, the reason why we're doing this is just kind of with the approaching film Deadpool and Wolverine, we're kind of going to be saying goodbye to the 20th century universe, for better, mainly for better or worse, but mainly for better. And so these movies they were huge at the time. A lot of them still big, so some of them still resonate, but they are due a proper goodbye. So that is the purpose of this podcast, why we're going to be redoing these, giving these movies a final review before they go into the Cerebro Vault or whatever the fuck you want to call it.
Get just drowned and thrown to the bottom of Alkali Lake.
Yeah, basically like Jean Grey.
Oh,
but yeah, so it's just not going to be a step-by-step review. As I said before, we're kind of just going to talk about our history with X-Men, our history with the films, what we think of it, what we liked, what we didn't like, what we would do different, what we hope to see next, what we think Deadpool 3 is going to do with these characters, things of that nature, and going through the kind of cultural assessment of these films as well. So as we start, I said last episode that my history with the X-Men kind of started. I wasn't a cartoon kid. My history started with these movies, which I saw. I believe I saw this one after Spider-Man. I don't remember, but I think I saw Spider-Man first, and then I saw this because this did come out the year before. But I saw it on home video from my neighbor, had it, and I was like, "What are you talking about? What are the X-Men?"
So if you were to look this up on Amazon to buy the DVD, it is titled as X2 X-Men United. But anywhere else that they put it right now, they have it as X2.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like the Blu-ray that I have of it is X2 X-Men United, and I'm pretty sure when the movie came out, the DVD I had was the same thing.
That's why I brought it up.
That's what I've always known it to be called.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, no, but if you look up X2 right now, IMDb has it just listed as X2, no X-Men United. And even on Disney Plus, it's just X2.
And then in even some places, it's shown as X-Men too, maybe foreign, in other countries. But that's my history with the X-Men. I never read the comics until, recently down the line. I mean, I wasn't exposed truly to comics until 2012-ish. I didn't make that leap. But Shane, what's your kind of history with the X-Men? Was it strictly the movies? I played some video games. Was it the movies, comics, the cartoon? What for you was the first X-Men?
It's definitely the animated show first. Because I used to watch. I forget what channel it was on. Was it?
Fox.
It wasn't Disney, was it? Fox. because I remember watching reruns all the time. Um, then I might have seen one of these in the theaters. I'm not sure. Maybe it was X2.
Okay.
But it was definitely the animated show first, and then I'm doing a lot of the comics now. A lot of the New Mutant stuff. A lot of it's pretty interesting. Mostly just because I love X-23, so I've been reading like everything I can with her in it.
Yeah, she's fucking awesome. Bob, I know you're a big X-Men comic reader. What
No,
was I
I
thought you
wish
were.
they're so convoluted. It's so hard to read.
That's what I was saying.
I've tried. It's like Superman. I've tried so many times to get like here's a jumping on point to get into X-Men, and they're just like dragged out and like it's just I can't there's 19 different series going on at once that are all like interconnecting. It's just
All like
I
the
want to like I
all
love
like
the X-Men. I just can't do it.
all like the essential storylines that people say you need to read are like the older ones too. So where there's like 1,000 words on the page and it just takes you forever to get through an issue. Like I've
And
I've tried reading a bunch of the older stuff too. It's tough to get through.
they are tough. It's a comic series that I kind of said this when I talked about the first X-Men movie, Bob, the same thing. There's just so many jumping on points. And I said, I remember, having X-Men Gold, X-Men Blue, X-Men Red, X-Men,
Yeah, so
X-Men
that was like what like 2022 or something like that maybe.
like
No,
it
that might have been before COVID, but
it was
like
before COVID.
yeah, so but that was like probably the last time. And then now Krakoa was what was a little bit later. That's like their little like island continent that they've now formed where it's just like mutants there. And that's pretty much where I like gave up. Cause I was like, and because I was reading that and I was like, all right, this is fine, but nothing was really happening for a while. And then it was like, well, you gotta read X-Men, uh, the Ravagers, and then that's where all the stuff is happening, and it's going to play into this. I'm like, I can't, I'm not buying
Yeah, it's
different things every month just to see one, like just to have anything happen. Like for a while, the Krakoa shit was like, I mean, again, it's Hickman. This is what he does, but I felt like I was reading like politics. Like they were just like, oh,
well, it is. It's the right. It's the politics of who would be like the team that manned Krakoa, right? Because some of that bled into Axe, which I read.
that was
Avengers.
for like longer than it should have been. Just like, hey,
Yeah,
you should, and nothing was happening. And I was like,
yeah,
I didn't know I was reading a textbook.
yeah. I didn't know half the shit that was happening in that crossover because I was only reading Eternals at the time.
That was Avengers X-Men, right?
No, Avengers, X-Men, Eternals.
They turn okay, okay.
That's recent. Then there was obviously the Avengers versus X-Men, which I enjoyed. People have their problems with it, but I enjoyed. Bob, did you see Shay mentioned that he said he thinks he saw one of these in the theater? Did you see any of these in the theater, or did you come to
Yeah,
these
I
late?
saw the third one for sure. They all came out when I was in high school. Oh, well, first one I didn't see in theaters. This one and the third one came out when I was in high school. So
Gotcha.
I saw them in theaters. Like the first movie I ever saw for a midnight showing was Wolverine Origins.
Oof.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear that.
But
Yeah. Oh.
so like I can't remember for sure if I saw this one in theaters. I know for a fact I saw the third one in theaters.
Shane, do you have a midnight release under your belt?
I don't think so. No, because I never there was never anything I really wanted to see that
And then you
bad.
didn't need
And
to
then
after a while.
yeah, and then the first Avengers had already come out, and that's when you told me to watch it. So then I went like the next day. So I
Yeah.
don't think so.
Bob, is that the only midnight movie you've done?
No, I've done a bunch.
Have you? I
Dark
did.
Knight, I did at midnight.
I did. Dark Knight Rises. I did Harry Potter Part One and Two,
I think I did
and
part one.
the Avengers. I did the Avengers, and then I think that those might be the only four that I've done. I'm just curious.
I'm
We've
Nah,
never
I feel
talked
like
about it.
I'm pretty sure I never did because back then, it was kind of a pain in the ass to go to the movies when like stuff was just coming out because it was like before assigned seating, so you had to like show up early enough where
Yeah.
you could sit with everyone you wanted to go with.
Hmm.
So I would usually just wait until it was like a more convenient time to go.
Yeah. Like
we were also I'm a little I was a little older, so it was like something to do.
yeah, it was
Yeah,
me and
I
my
was in college, you didn't have a class on Friday. Let's go out and go to this instead of going out and drinking all night. You know what I mean?
yeah,
If
that
it was a
was
movie people were interested in.
the Avengers was a uh it was something I was forced to do that Friday. My dad took me, and that was the first one. And then Harry Potter's part one was the day before my birthday. And my dad's like, I can't take you on your birthday, so we're gonna go. And then Dark Knight Rises was just out of the need. And then same thing,
That
kind
was
of.
the Dark Knight. It was definitely midnight. Dark Knight Rises, I would assume I also did midnight.
That's a tough one. That was like a 3-hour movie. But yeah, no, I was just out of curiosity. But so yeah, no, in my history with the X-Men, I saw X2 and 3. You know, I saw X2 in theaters and then every single one except for after that, except for Dark Phoenix, which was a fucking
I
turd.
didn't see. I don't think I saw Dark Phoenix at all, to be
It's a
honest.
fucking turd.
Maybe on the
I,
rewatch.
I still haven't seen it.
It sucks. Don't.
Also,
The
we're
last
gonna
X-Men
start-
movie I saw was when we saw Apocalypse, and then after that, I was like, I'm not watching any more of
You
these
haven't
movies.
seen New Mutants?
No,
No, remember? Do you not remember this? Like
I didn't
Shane
know if you've
was.
seen it.
No. I'm just saying, like Shane was so excited for New Mutants
I
I
was.
remember that. Yeah.
for like the 6 years that the movie was coming out.
The first trailer they put out looked really good, and they had a good cast.
And then
It
8
looked
years
like
later,
like
the movie came out.
yeah, they were making it like an X-Men horror movie, which like I
Yeah.
love X-Men, I love horror movies, and then like you guys said it sucked, all the reviews were terrible. It took like 19 years for it to come out, so I was just like, yeah, I don't care anymore.
Yeah, it was bad. Have you seen it since or no?
No,
All right, you're coming
No.
back for New Mutants for sure because I want you
okay,
to fucking
that's
watch
fine.
that movie.
I've stopped wanting to like waste my time with stuff I don't care about. So like
It
if
was
I'm
pretty good.
behind on movies and shows and stuff, I just don't care. I don't feel like wasting my time with it.
What were you saying, Bob?
So New Mutants was pretty good.
I don't
Like,
remember.
Probably worth the time.
I don't remember. I definitely didn't love it. I don't remember.
I thought we all liked it, but it was also we hadn't been to the theater. Like it was me, you, and
Yeah.
your dad. We went, and it was like after COVID.
Yes.
I remember being like fine with it because it was. I didn't need to know anything else. I wasn't leading into anything else. It was like exactly what I wanted from that movie.
Yeah.
It was cool mutant stuff. It had the horror elements.
Yeah. For sure. But that was the last X-Men movie I saw in theaters. And I don't know if that was the last time I actually sat down and watched it. But when was the last time you guys sat down and watched X-Men 2 from start to finish? Not catching it on like TNT or anything like that. Like when was the last time you sat down and watched this movie?
I was just talking to Bob about that before you hopped on. We started recording. I don't think I watched these movies like post MCU. Like I think it's been that long since I like sat down and rewatched them.
I sat down and rewatched this last when I saw Days of Future Past, which was like 2014, I believe, 2014. So that was the last time I watched the trilogy for sure. That before that movie came out, because I was so excited for that movie. Bob, what about you? Same thing, kind of before MCU.
I feel like they used to be on TV more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I couldn't give you an exact date that would be before MCU. I couldn't tell you specifically.
But
I feel like I've seen this one a million times in parts.
yeah,
Like as I was watching, I was like, I remember this. Like I didn't remember it all. Like, and then it would come up. And I was like, okay, I remember this part. I remember this part.
these are like the ultimate parts movies. Like you catch
Like when
them on
Wolverine was
TV.
fighting like Lady Deathstrike type thing. I was like, okay, here we like this is that scene where he's gonna fill her with adamantium.
Yeah, I love that scene. It's a great scene. But yeah, so it's been probably like 10 plus years then for you guys. You sat and watched start to finish.
I start to finish easily. Yeah,
Yeah.
if not more.
Same here. Or probably just at that 10-year mark because of Days of Future Past. So, all right, let's get into X2, X-Men United, or X2, or X-Men 2, whatever you want to call it. 2003 film starring the X-Men 2. The synopsis is when anti-mutant Colonel William Stryker kidnaps Professor X and attacks his school, the X-Men must ally with their arch enemy Magneto to stop him. Pretty straightforward, huh? Pretty straightforward and simple.
Yeah, he definitely isn't gonna double cross them at the end. That's not in his character.
Definitely not.
Not possible.
Spoiler alert, no. So this movie,
no, everything ends happily.
So this movie was released May 2nd, 2003 on a budget of $125 million. It grossed $407.7 million, which is like almost a little bit less than double what the first one made.
And I definitely did not see this in theaters because I was in 8th grade. And I don't think I was a big movie person in 8th grade.
I saw this in theaters. I went with my
now
dad.
that I say that out loud, me and my brother might have went because that was the year we went to a lot. Because that was when the Hulk happened. where the guy said that
Yes,
got
that
bunnies.
guy
Yeah,
got
that was
bunnies.
all around the same time. So I take that back immediately.
My dad picked me up from school and we went on a Friday. I remember it. This and I just specifically remember this. It was the widest release ever at the time, hit 93 markets and 11,000 theaters. Its opening weekend was $85.6 million, which was still at the time under Spider-Man's $115 million. And then home release was $107 million in just the first 5 days on DVD. So this is back when home, we talked a little bit about this last time, but home release was so big back in the day that movies were getting made and they were counting on those box office receipts from their DVD releases, and so they could make a movie that cost a little bit more money because they knew that at least if whatever they made in the box, at the theaters, a little bit more was going to come back on the home release. So that's something that we've kind of lost now, and why a lot of these movies, a lot of movies are more straightforward to a degree.
But,
So the,
what factor do you think like blockbuster type places played into that?
oh,
How much money
huge.
do you think the studios made from them? A lot.
I'm not sure. I know that the
I never
first
really thought about
movie,
it from the other side because I was just a kid wanting to go to Blockbuster.
yeah, no. So I know Reynolds were huge for the first X-Men movie. I know that. I'm not sure. I'm sure they probably have brokered some kind of deal where they bought the DVD for like maybe a little bit less than half or something to know.
Yeah,
I don't, that's a great question. I don't know.
that's a
I'll have
weird.
to
Let me
look
see if
into
I
that.
can figure that out while you're giving the
Yeah.
rest of this background.
So this movie was received really well. Rotten Tomatoes score of 85%, with the consensus saying tightly scripted, solidly acted, and impressively ambitious. X2, X-Men United, which they used, that's what they used, is bigger and better than its predecessor and a benchmark for comic sequels in general, which I can totally agree. I think that this movie definitely improves upon the original, and takes some swings for sure. And it had a video game tie-in, which I don't know if you guys remember this. X2 Wolverine's Revenge. Did either of you play this game?
I think so.
I
I
love
think I think we rented it type thing. I don't
Yeah.
didn't have it. I don't remember a lot about it.
I
When I
remember
I
saw
don't
that
remember.
on your notes, I like very vaguely remember playing.
I remember the X-Men arcade games,
yeah.
like
And that might have been my
like
first exposure to X Men, to be honest, even
like
before.
Marvel versus Capcom. I think had all the X-Men in
Yeah,
it.
or just the
That
X
was
Men game
always
where
that
you
was
could
cool.
be like Storm and you were just like fighting.
Yeah,
I had it for like a Game Gear, I think too. I don't even think it was Game Boy. I think it was Game Gear.
Game Gear.
Yeah,
I
Sega.
had I'm pretty sure I had this X2 game on GameCube, and I liked it a lot. I had the X3 game too. I had Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Big superhero kid, obviously. But nothing's changed. So the history of this movie is interesting, but not really anything like earth-shattering. So it was greenlit in 2000, November 2000, shortly after the release of the first one, where Zach Penn and David Hayter were commissioned to write two separate scripts and then combine them into one using the best elements from both. Eventually, both those guys' final drafts didn't even make, I guess they helped pave the way, but eventually Michael Dougherty and Dan Harris were hired to rewrite their work. So in the original script by Penn, he pitched the Dark Phoenix saga, which fucking, of course, and based it on the novel X-Men God Loves, Man Kills by Chris Claremont. Are either of you guys familiar with Chris
I
Claremont?
he is the definitive X Men author. Like if there's
Okay.
a good X Men story, he probably had a hand in it somewhere for the most part until recently. So
Okay.
like Days of Future Past is Chris Claremont. So you've read his.
Okay. Yeah. So I have read his stuff. Um, so there was only a few real differences between the script that they wrote and the one that Claremont, like the story Claremont told. But we'll get to that a little bit later when I dive a little bit into Stryker. And Angel and Beast were in the original drafts, but they were cut. However, there is a fun Easter egg, if you guys noticed in this film, of Dr. Hank McCoy on
Corey
television.
on TV at the bar. Yeah.
Oh, that
yeah.
was
I
pretty cool.
remember. I remember. See, because I forgot when he came into the movies,
Hmm.
and I remember it wasn't Kelsey Grammer, and I was really confused watching. I was like, why? Why is that Hank McCoy?
Yeah. It was just like a fun throwaway Easter egg.
So when does he come in? The third movie?
He doesn't come until the third one, which I was also surprised by as well, rewatching these two, because for some reason I thought that he was around longer, but
So did I. I thought he was in the first movie. I didn't realize he came in that late.
I guess he just made such an impression that I was like,
I
fuck.
mean, that movie stinks, but he's one of like the best characters in the movies, I think,
Oh, absolutely.
especially the Kelsey Grammer version.
Yeah. No, I enjoy his version of Beast, which we may see again. I don't know. And then there's also an X-ray of Angel hanging in Stryker's lab, which I didn't pick that
Mm.
one up on that.
No, I didn't see that.
So Sabretooth was supposed to return in this movie as well, but he was cut out, and they never really allude to what happened. So he was presumed dead or being experimented on, but then actually in the title X2 X-Men United, the movie prequel Wolverine. This is the fucking title of this comic book. The tie-in prequel comic to X2, Wolverine and Sabretooth fight each other, and it de-escalates into a conversation between the two.
Just
Wow.
talk it out.
Acting like brothers, right? They are then surrounded by Hydra agents ordered by William Stryker and manage to subdue the both of them en route to their base, and Wolverine attempts an escape. It's then implied that Sabretooth sacrifices himself to save Wolverine by tossing him off of the plane into the frozen waters below. Sabretooth is then recaptured and taken back to be experimented on by Weapon X scientists when Sabretooth's body rejects the adamantium and he's shot dead. So, like, what the fuck? Like, I
Wait, shot
understand.
dead. I thought he had a healing factor too.
I don't.
How was he
I don't
shot
know.
dead?
I don't know. I guess we should. You know what? Maybe he'll be back. Maybe he'll be
I
back.
mean, it might have the adamantium might have like
It probably poisoned him. Is probably what happened.
yeah.
Oh, maybe.
Maybe that's a factor because like Wolverine, like kind of dies when he gets the adamantium, but his healing factor allows him to regenerate. Like, dude, don't they talk about that? Not in this movie.
Logan.
In Logan, they talk about
That's
it.
why he's like aging and he's like getting all slow because
'Cause
the adamantium
Adamantium's like
is
seeping
messing
out.
up his
Like,
healing factor. Yeah.
That's right. Okay. One of the requirements for the rewrites was that Storm had to have more screen time, which
I
makes
agree with that.
yeah, exactly. She's awesome.
She's great.
This is like a top-notch cast. It
Hmm.
really is. They're all great. They all kind of look the part.
The only one I don't like is Anna Paquin.
I don't like her as an actress either. And we
And
talk.
plus, like Rogue in the animated show is like the best one in the show. And
Oh,
then like
really?
Anna Paquin just kind of sucks.
And her character sucks in these movies. She's
Yeah, she's
boring.
awful. Well, in the comics and in the animated show, she's cooler. Like she has more powers because I think she drains Captain Marvel.
Yes,
So
yes,
then she just like permanently has flight and super strength.
which is awesome.
It's so cool.
They
And
could
then
have
but then in the
easily done that.
movie, all she does is drain people. So like she's kind of boring.
Yeah, no. The only reason she was included in the original movie was because of Bryan Singer. So he was drawn to the X-Men because he saw it as a being a persecuted bunch of the mutants,
Hmm.
and it was an analogy for it's an analogy for a ton of different groups of people. And he saw that her mutation walled her off and like kind of shut her
Hmm.
down and like made her be alone the most. And it was like the perfect example of what struck him with the first X-Men movie, like the first what drew him to X-Men. So that's the
Yeah.
only reason she was included.
Yeah, I just think she's kind of boring in the movies. I mean, her storyline makes sense in the third movie. Like I understand why she would want to go like try and get the cure,
Hmm.
but I don't know. Just
She's
she's really cool in the animated show.
Yeah, she's boring. They nerf her,
Yeah,
and it's really she just feels like an extension just to get Wolverine to Xavier. Like that's
pretty much. Yeah,
in the first movie. Like that's like because once she's there, she's kind of useless. Like
she doesn't really
obviously.
do she doesn't really do anything in the second movie.
No, she doesn't do anything in the second movie. The first movie, she's just Magneto wants to use her. And the
Yeah.
second movie, she doesn't do anything. And in the third movie, she's barely in it because
Hmm.
she wants the cure.
Yeah, she
Um,
like gets cured and then like you don't see her for the rest of the movie, pretty much.
I'm with you, man. I'm not a huge fan, but and I don't really like Anna Paquin as an actress either. But that's just
Yeah,
me.
but I mean, hopefully, now that we have Captain Marvel in the MCU, hopefully when they redo the X-Men, they can do her the right way, and
That would
then
be really cool.
she'll be cool.
That would be
because
really cool.
she's supposed to be like overly southern, like that's how she talks.
Yes, that's because that's how she is in the comics or in
Yeah,
the
and then just
cartoon.
her interactions with Gambit are always great.
No, I can't wait to see Gambit. I'm very
Yeah,
excited for that.
I'm excited for him.
So Singer began researching themes for the film, stating that there needed to be a human villain. So in the first movie, we got Magneto trying to turn
Hmm.
everybody into a mutant. Now we want to have a human villain. Makes sense. So he began looking for the perspective of the human experience, the kind of blind rage that feeds into warmongering and terrorism. Again, kind of what we're talking about when I was talking about why he wanted to include Rogue, like this sense of persecution against one of the
Hmm.
um, like of the mutants for any walks of life of people. So he also looked to continue the exploration of isolation. That's the word I was looking for, was that Rogue is like the perfect example of isolation.
Yeah,
So Bryan Singer adds, the X-Men films pose the question that we all have. Am I alone in the world? Why am I so different? And how am I going to fit in? These questions are universal and timeless, particularly among adolescents. We've all felt at times like mutants. So I'm going to use this segment here to ask, if you could be a mutant, what would your powers be?
teleporting.
That's a good one.
It's like literally since the first time I started, like I discovered the X-Men.
Yeah.
Well, Nightcrawler's always been my favorite,
Yeah.
Nightcrawler's the
um,
shit, man.
for a lot of reasons, but teleporting just seems so cool.
It would be makes life a lot easier.
Yeah, I mean, but like a little better than what he can do. You know how he says he has to like see where he's going? I
Yeah.
just want to be like, no, I want to be in this part of the world and then just like be there.
Bing. And then you're
Yeah.
there. What about you, Bob?
I always say I'm kind of like a simple person. Like I have this conversation sometimes, like if I could have a superpower, I feel like everybody has that conversation at some point. And I always say like telekinesis. Now, right? Is that where I can move
That's
things? Is that
Yeah,
telekinesis?
that's telekinesis.
Yeah, just because I'm lazy. Like if the remote
I
falls off the table, I can just like it's almost like the force.
or you go
I
get
think we've all been
a
laying in bed
beer.
at one point and you see something across the room and you're just like, man, it'd be sick if I had telekinesis
That's
right
what I
now.
mean. Like I feel like that's the one I would use the
And
most.
then you don't get up to get the thing and you just lay in bed and go, well, it's too much.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess I don't have the thing.
Yeah.
For
Mine
me, it's like so I have like a podium in my classroom and I put my water bottle on it. And at least once a week, I walk over to my desk and like sit down to eat my lunch and I realize I left my water bottle on that podium. And it's so frustrating. It's just the worst.
it is. I've
Just
done that.
at 10 feet of walking back to get it is the worst.
I've done a few things like that at work. Mine would be Wolverine. It's always been since I was, for
The
whatever
healing
reason,
factor or everything.
both. But if I had to pick one, it would be the I don't know, because like if somebody's fucking pissing you off, you just gotta show them the claws and they'll back
I
off.
feel like that's not his
But
mutant
to
power. Do you know what I mean?
Well, he has the bone growth.
Like it is, but like yeah, like
It's a 1-2 punch.
well, he didn't always have the bone claws though.
No, that was added more recently. Yes,
Yeah. I
but
like the bone claws. That's a cool idea.
yeah, but my thing was
But
just people might think because of my. I said this last time too. Uh, because of my hemophilia, no, that's never been a thought of why I wanted the
oh
healing
yeah,
factor.
I didn't even jump to that.
No, I never a thought I had. I said that the one time, and I was just like, "Oh, that makes sense." Like, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's why."
Yes, of
um
course.
but like I've thought about this before. To what extent would you want to have his healing factor? Like, do you want like the immortality that comes with it? Because I think
Fuck
that
no,
sucks.
fuck no. I would like to live. I just want to make it to like maybe 100,
I
and
mean,
then
like
I'm fine.
That's so
slow
long.
your aging down a little bit is fine, but to be like 1,000 years old and you have to watch everyone die, that sucks.
Yeah, no, it's like, yeah,
You know what's
no.
a
But
cool one too that like I don't really think about? Like Domino. Like the like
Oh,
min-
like the Lux all in her
yeah, I
favor.
forget like what they call it, but it's like probability manipulation or
Yes,
whatever.
that's.
yeah,
I think that's what they
Everything
call it.
falls. I thought it was something like that. Yeah.
My sports
Everything-
teams would always win. It'd be nice.
I would just live at the casino.
It's just like a cool. I feel like that's a cool idea.
It is cool. So
Um,
then, go ahead,
Hold on,
Jake.
I had one more just because it's not really doesn't really do anything for you in case you had to like fight a lot of people. But I really like Colossus in these movies,
Mm.
and I think he's really like not used enough.
No, he's not.
But I like the way how he's just like normal, and then like he turns his skin into the metal. I always
Yeah.
think that those scenes are always cool when he does it, but he only does it like 2 times.
Yeah, they're
Colossus
awesome.
is
And
one of my
then
favorites, and it really doesn't make a lot of sense. But I mean, he's
that's
always been a dude I loved.
that's
He
Marvel's
just
favorite. When
Yeah,
he's
Marvel
one of mine
was
too, and like for no reason. Like he hasn't been in a lot of stuff
Well,
that
like
I've
the
seen.
comics, and the newer comics specifically, I don't know about what's going on now, but like stuff that I've read before I kind of quit, it was a
Mhm.
lot of him and Kitty Pride stuff. Like all the Kitty Pride shit,
all
was
Kitty
kind of
Pryde.
like when it's the two of them, it's kind of cool. I'm trying to think of who else I would.
Marvel said the same thing, and then he's not really used well until Deadpool. And like Deadpool, I think they use him perfectly.
Yeah,
But speaking of characters that are not used well, one of the reasons for the rewrites of the script was that James Marsden had to have more scenes as well, and he's barely even in this movie. He's barely in the first one, in my opinion, and he's barely in this one. Like he's gone for the second half of the
I think
movie.
he's in this or the first one more than this one.
He is. He's for sure because he disappears because then we get all those scenes with Professor X under like the where he's under that trance and Cyclops is supposed to be with him. And we don't see that motherfucker. We don't see him at all.
yeah.
And
Cyclops kind of stinks in these movies.
he does stink in these movies and a lot of kind of stinks in the comics.
I was gonna
But
say he's not the best in the
yeah,
comic.
he has a very tragic history. But he's even in the third one even less, which is crazy, which is that was on purpose though.
That's
Um,
Duke's boy.
I know. I know. It's just why it blunders me because he kind of stinks. But
Oh, baby boy cries over his girlfriend all the time.
so singer and producer Tom DeSantis pictured this film as the series' own Empire Strikes Back, where the heroes split up and they're dissected and then revelations occur, which I feel like happens a lot in movies. I'm not opposed to it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it
Just
doesn't.
this and the Empire Strike Back.
That's it. Those are the only
Those are
two
the only
movies.
two that it ever happened.
So I want to note some of the difference between William Stryker, who's played by Brian Cox, and his comic. There was a little bit of a transition from comics to screen. So in the comics, William Stryker is a religious fanatic with a military past with a hatred for mutants. Immediately after the birth of their deformed mutant son, Stryker kills his wife and his child, and then attempts to kill himself. But he fails. Um, as time passes, he is convinced that Satan has a plot to destroy humankind by corrupting prenatal souls. The results of this corruption is the mutants. Additionally, Stryker eventually comes to see his mutant son's birth as a sign from God, directing him to his true calling, ensuring the eradication of all mutants. This guy is fucking evil. And
I like the movie version of Stryker better than what you just described.
yeah, because
I really like his backstory about how like the wife took a drill to her head because he was like making them hallucinate.
yeah, like it's a slight change.
Hmm.
Obviously the religious backstory and like but the military backstory is there, and essentially they just changed things a little bit to make it work. And
Hmm.
they did replace, Lady Deathstrike isn't from associated with him. That was supposed to be Sabretooth again, but then they replaced Sabretooth with her in a different version of the script.
They're like, what would you rather look at, Sabretooth or
That
uh,
weird ass Sabretooth.
what is her name? Kelly Hugh.
Yeah, that's who. Yeah, she is. She's been
That
around for a
is
while.
who.
Ah, there you go. So
Oh
filming,
man.
fun fact, McKellen and Stewart didn't know how to play chess, so they brought a game master in, which, I don't really buy because those two people would be the people I think that know how to play chess.
Was they play in this movie or did they just play at the end of the first?
I think it's the end of the first, and this was a fun fact for this one, but
I saw
me and Marvel talked about it in the last episode, so I think this is wrong.
I saw it on your like because like you sent your notes and I saw it on there and then I was like so then when I looked at them before I watched it just like
Mhm.
went over, and that was the one thing I like saw. I was like, oh okay, I guess they play. I was like, that's a lot of chess in that little prison. They don't play chess at all.
No, they don't. They do at the end of the first one when he's in the prison. So then again, the Bryan Singer of it all. It's just we talked about it a little bit. He's a fucking scumbag. We don't condone anything, but he did a really good job with these three X-Men movies he did. Apocalypse things, but
Did an okay job.
Alan Cummings called working on the film a bad experience, and he was supposed to come back for the third one, but they ended up not bringing him back for other reasons we'll talk about in the third episode. But Singer berated the cast. He was very much an asshole. And that is what prompted Halle Berry to tell him to kiss her black ass, which some people might like that, but whatever. And originally, the film was rated R due to some scenes from Stryker's invasion on the mansion, which they turned down and get the PG-13 rating. So that
What did
is,
they like? They massacre a bunch of the kids or something when they come in?
I think they probably just had blood, and they probably just removed the blood, and they're like, "This is fine," because that's a very violent scene.
I was
Which
gonna say it's not better. Like you're still
no,
just like attacking children.
it's still
Maybe the blood was from Wolverine. Maybe he's just like cutting everybody in half.
yeah. That scene is fucking unreal and probably my favorite scene from the film. So let's get into it a little bit. What are some things that you guys really liked or loved that you've always loved or that you just kind of picked up from this watch?
For me, it's always the opening scene. That's that's one of my favorite scenes from any of the X-Men movies.
Is it the
Um,
best opening of any superhero movie?
The Nightcrawler scene.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, for me, it's possible that it is.
I
I
don't
think
know.
the opening of Days of Future Past is pretty cool too.
Yeah, when they're all like when they're
When they're
fighting.
all getting attacked by the Sentinels.
But this is even like how many years later? 21 years later. And
Hmm.
this scene still is like so jaw dropping.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
scene is part of the
it
reason
doesn't look
why
bad. Like it
No.
looks good.
Yeah.
it's part
Everything
of the
with
reason why
Nightcrawler looks
Nightcrawler's
awesome.
my favorite. Like this scene is kind of like what cemented that.
Yeah. Everybody who saw this movie, and this is what we open with, immediately fell in love with. Well, I know I did. I
Hmm.
fell in love with Nightcrawler. And then you learn a little bit more about him in the movie. Like he's not a major character, but he's a big enough character. Like when he has that intimate scene with Storm, it's so cool. When he's like, "These are for, all the sins that I've done or whatever."
Yeah,
The tattoo scene. So I agree. I think it may be. I don't know. I'm trying to like think of even like some the Dark Knight. The Dark Knight. The Batman movies always open with like a fun thing, but
Bank robbery scene's pretty good, but I think this is better.
I think this is better. I'm trying to think of the Marvel movies.
I feel like Marvel movies don't usually have like a crazy open.
Their opening is usually story related because I would say I love the Guardians opening, but I'm thinking of the opening that happens after they show the prologue of him getting picked up by Yondu after his mom dies. Like I'm trying to
yeah.
think. I'm not gonna just straight up say yes, it is, but it's hard to like. This has been always like when you think of X2, you think of this scene.
Well, I didn't
Very
see
cycle.
Madam Web yet, so that could
Oh shit!
that could have
You know what?
yeah
You're right. We'll
that could
we'll
have it
say
in the
this.
bag. Yeah, I don't know what they're doing.
That's the greatest comic book movie ever made. Um, but yeah, how about you, Bob? Anything this time around that
Yeah, I mean,
you?
everything Nightcrawler, I just like appreciated more. I think just because I really like Nightcrawler. The house, like you said, is cool. Some of the stuff I did not like as much as I remember liking it. I was saying to Shane earlier, like I remembered when I was younger. I feel like X-Men was good, and then I feel like X2 was like the better movie to me when I was younger, and I just watched them both. And this one I felt like wasn't as good as the first overall, but like the action sequences were all cool. Um, just the one shot where Magneto has the plane and he's like
Oh
helping it
yeah,
to the ground.
Yeah.
It's just
that's
like
awesome.
cool Magneto shit. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
The Mystique stuff too holds up. Like all of that
Yep.
CGI looks good.
Yeah, it does, man. Like, and even her body making her like have like the flex and trying to give it like a realistic like take where like what is technically changing on her body. Like, I love that. I think it's so cool. That like helps her form. Like, she's got like those like spots on her body that like help her
Yeah,
like find it form. I think it's
Like
great.
scales almost. Like they
Yeah,
make it
yeah,
look
yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
Which I think is
I
great.
remember that being a big thing. I'm sure you talked about it on the first one, but like it coming out like how long it would take her in makeup to like
Oh yeah.
have all
Yeah.
that shit done and all.
You
So
know.
the one thing like I made a note of, so I love Mystique in this movie too.
Mhm.
I wish that they had her like costume from the comics. Like the
What's
Like the
white.
white.
like the
Oh,
white with like the skulls all over it. Like I think it's really cool.
but it
Like I think that
also,
looks cooler than her just being like blue
but
and naked.
it makes more sense for her to
Yeah,
be.
but 13-year-old me disagrees.
The 29-year-old me disagrees.
Well, it makes more sense, especially with that line where Nightcrawler asks her like, "Why don't you just look like everybody else?" And she's like, "Well, you shouldn't have
I
to."
should, yeah.
I just
Mhm.
really like her like how she looks in the comics.
And she just wants to bang Wolverine.
Dude, like heavy, she wants to bang Wolverine,
How
and then
cool is that
Wolverine just
scene?
wants to fuck
He
Jean.
Yep. How cool is that
gave her
scene
the option, or she gave him the option. I guess I should say.
when he like feels her chest and
Yeah, but
goes
she was
deeper
like,
in
"You don't
there?
even have to bang me. I can look
I can be
who
whatever you
whoever you
want.
want to be." Yeah.
And then when she turns into Rogue, and I'm like, he pauses too long here. Like,
He thought about
That's
it. He
like
thought
a
about it.
weird.
yeah,
He thought about it.
But in retrospect, now that's a weird Bryan Singer thing.
that is a weird Bryan Singer thing.
It's like,
I mean, she's got the hots for him, Mystique, but I'm talking about Rogue, and then he's just
but I'm saying like that whole Rogue. And now I'm like, Bryan Singer is such a weirdo. Like
he's
I
fucking
remember when
weird.
I was watching today, I was like, that dude's such a weirdo.
Well, Marvel was telling me, and the listeners in the last episode, why we get a different actor for Pyro was because some shit happened with that kid that was playing Pyro. Like he was flown out. I forget the specifics of it, but like promised all these things and nothing really happened. Like he didn't get paid and something else. Maybe I'm not going to clarify because I don't even remember exactly. But there was
What?
a
But
reason.
between X-Men and X2, he was.
There's a Pyro in X Men,
It's like yeah, like they like
Oh,
in the at the academy when they first get there.
but
okay.
they like
He's
fucked
not like
this
a
kid in.
major
No, it's a small
player, but
role.
they show him. Yeah,
Yeah, it's small. But Bryan Singer somehow fucked him over. I don't know. I forget the specifics of it, but
choice words there, RP.
I know. Um, but anything else that you really loved about this movie? Like, any plot points, any
Uh,
things that
the
subverted your expectations?
the Magneto prison escape is really cool. Like I forgot how cool it was,
Yeah,
and then
that's
I'm
a good one.
rewatching it.
There is a ton of fucking good scenes in this movie.
Yeah,
That has always been one of my favorites. I always thought it was so cool how seeing a fat guy can get with a hot chick. I mean, I always just aspirations, you know.
That one made
un
that bar scene. I had gave me high hopes. Like
No,
maybe if I get a job in a prison, somebody will try to break their friend out.
I mean that's
but
the largest needle of lead I've ever seen.
Magneto Magneto kills this guy by literally sucking the iron out of his blood, and
Yeah.
then while he's laying there dead, proceeds to absolutely roast him. I
Yeah.
wrote down the quote: "Never trust a beautiful woman, especially one who's interested in you." There's no need for that. He's already dead.
Oh, that guy was a dick to him for a while.
Just continuing to slay in this role is Sir
I was
Ian
looking
McKellen.
at some of the like letterbox reviews
Mhm.
to see where people ranked it because I thought X-Men was better than this movie. And somebody like just rewatched it like a couple weeks ago or something like that, and they were like giving their reasons, and it was like also love Ian McKellen being a catty queen.
He
She like
does.
is like
He
this whole movie. He's just like really sassy.
he always is. He always looks fantastic. His line delivery is perfect, and him and Xavier's chemistry is great because they're great friends in real life.
Yeah,
So being able to see that, for me, this movie does hold up. I think it's better now. I think when I was younger, I only enjoyed the action scenes a lot, and I thought that I still do think that this movie moves a little bit slow, especially
I
compared to
feel
the
like
first
it's
one.
broken up like that. Like I feel like there's almost sometimes there's too much going on at once sometimes.
And you think when you look at this movie, you're like, there's a lot that's going on, and it's really only three locations. It's the mansion,
Yeah,
like the White House, and then this place in Alaska or wherever the heck they are, uh,
Canada.
Canada. And so I think that this time around, I just appreciated that, what they did with the first one, where they tried to make it a serious subject matter. They continued that, and they didn't just make it. It's crazy once like watching these to see, and I've already watched three to see the contrast between 2 and 3, and it's felt immediately where these movies are made short. Again, say what you want about Bryan Singer, but there is a deliberate intention that the way that these movies were directed, the way that they were written, the way that the cast is amazing. It's a perfectly cast film. Everybody in this movie is great, but I appreciated this movie more now this watch. And like we talked about, all the action scenes hold up, some of the CGI still looks pretty good. But I mean, that Lady Deathstrike and the Wolverine fight is another awesome fight that I always loved as a kid. Like that, I would always look forward to the Magneto scene where he breaks out, the Wolverine, the house getting attacked scene, and then this fight. Like those were the three benchmarks for me growing up, and it still holds up. And I was able to show this to my wife for the first time, and she really enjoyed it as well. And something that I appreciated for sure this more time around is the storyline of Stryker's kid, where it I understood it when I was younger and like the last time I watched it, but I'm like, this is actually like a pretty cool premise and like a way to nerf Xavier. So I like
Yeah,
that more.
because like he is such a strong telepath that like you have to have another really strong
Yeah,
telepath.
but
And
that's
plus,
what I kind of hated.
but they started, remember when Stryker first captures him, they have that like dampener on him,
Yeah.
and then he's like mind controlling him, like doing all the hallucinations and shit. And then I guess once he has a hold of him, I don't know, he got lost in it and he couldn't like realize what was going on and pull himself out.
Yeah, so there was actually a deleted scene that helps this film a little bit, where there's a scene where Xavier thinks that he gets out of the trance, of the hallucinations. And so then he's going back to the mansion and then is like, well, I'm out of this. I got to go save them all. And then kind of leads them to what they want, which would have made sense. And I don't know why they took it out. It's like one of those like head scratchers. Like, what are you doing? Um, but yeah, no, it's something I really appreciate. There is a negative that it does maybe move a little bit slow, but it's precise. It's taking its time. The only other negative is the cinematography, not the cinematography. I don't know what you call the color grading. Whoever's in charge of the color grading, this movie looks like fucking shit. Like there's when they're underneath the ground and like everything is just like a teal, has like a teal tint to it. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just hypersensitive to it. But like, there's just like so many scenes where it looks like shit, and the rest of it, I'm like, the rest of it looks good. Like the opening and everything, and the mansion. Like there was like weird color grading on the first film for a lot of it, and then for some of this, I'm like, some of this looks like shit. But the camera work, all that shit, I think is great with the action. Um, any negatives that you guys maybe hate it or maybe could have you think you guys could have improved anything like that?
Well, me and you already talked about Rogue when Bob stepped away. That's really the only thing I could think of, but I just don't really like her in these movies.
Yeah, she stinks. Bob, that was our consensus. She stinks in these movies.
I don't mind Rogue.
You like Rogue? I think she's
She
pointless.
can be so much cooler, and I just think she doesn't really do anything in these
I think
movies.
she's afraid. I think she's young. I don't think she gets it yet.
Mhm.
So
Well,
I
she's never gonna because she gets rid of her powers.
Yep.
yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? But like also you think of her powers. When we were talking about the powers that you guys would want, nobody wants her power, right?
Nope.
Right, but
It's not like a talent.
what I
It's
was
a curse.
what I was saying to RP is how like in like the animated show in the comics, how like she siphons off Captain Marvel and then she gets like new cooler powers
Yeah.
that like makes her useful when they're fighting people.
But also she's a teenage girl. And so like not being able to do anything, like to touch
Mhm.
people like she's like a pariah. You know what I mean? Like I get her story arc in these movies to an extent.
So
I don't think that she's like a dud. I think that they just told a different Rogue story there. I
Mhm.
have a lot of problems with this movie, and Rogue is not one of them.
so she was I was telling Shane, she was handpicked by like her character specifically, handpicked by Singer due to the route that he was taking with the themes applying to himself for X-Men and why the isolation. She's the epitome of isolation.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's
And
perfect.
as all the X-Men always are, they are a what's the word? Not an allegory, like a
It's an allegory.
yeah, they're an allegory for racial and sexual persecution in our world today, whether it's all the things that we've talked about in the past. So Bob, what are some of the things you didn't like about this movie?
The Cyclops thing we already talked about.
Yeah, he fucking stinks.
I feel like Storm was just different.
So she
I know
again
she
what
didn't like the filming, but like I just didn't like. I feel like the acting in this movie wasn't great.
no, I think it was decent.
Everything with
I
I know that it's already there. Everything with Jean Grey and Wolverine was
yes.
like awkward.
Yes.
Like it's not. It doesn't seem.
Yeah,
I don't know how to
mean,
put it, but
that whole storyline too, I can do without. Like, I don't.
that's them. You know what I mean? Like I'm the same way where I could do without it, but like that's Wolverine and Jean Grey and Scott Summers. Like that's who they are.
Yeah, I know. It's just it's.
Well, I think the thing with that is like when you see it in other things, it kind of it's not so one sided as it is in the movie. Where like you can tell like Jean does have feelings for him. In this, it just feels like Wolverine's a fucking creep
He's
and
just
won't
a
leave her
creep,
alone.
right? And so like it was like, and then he like kisses her after
Yeah,
the
Yeah.
weird scene.
he me too's her like this whole movie. Like, he just won't leave her the fuck alone.
Yeah.
He does.
So yeah, I mean, just some of it I didn't love. The action sequences are all great. Like there's no
One
doubt
other
in
scene
that.
we didn't talk about that is great is when Storm and Jean Grey go and look for Nightcrawler, and she like electrocutes the church.
Yeah.
I always fucking love that scene. Sorry to interrupt. I think
Yeah,
Storm is. I think she's great. I think she's a
anytime
great.
No, it
Storm
just
uses her
like I watched
powers in these movies is always like a cool scene.
I
Yeah.
watched the first one the other day and then I watched this one and there's just a very I mean, if it was 2 years apart or whatever they came out, no big deal. But I feel like there was a very clear difference in like what they did with that character that
Mhm.
like it just felt weird to me. Like in the first one, I feel like she's more like subdued. Whereas in this one,
Yeah, they opened her up. One of the mandates of the rewrites was to have her more in it.
but it just very clearly seems to me like, hey, Halle Berry's hot. Let's get her going.
Yeah, she's a big star too at the time.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know. I didn't love it. I don't like if so the end scene for me is like weird. The ending sequence at like Alkali Lake. Like I get that Xavier's just had like his mind fucked with for probably an extended period of time, but like he is a big time mutant. Like he's an Omega level mutant, and he's just completely helpless.
Yeah,
I feel like that's not how he would be. Do you know what I mean? Like I feel like that's not did it make sense? Like he would be fighting or helping or doing whatever he could, and not just like someone carry me. Nightcrawlers poof me into the jet.
I've seen some of that too. Is just the movie of it all, where it's like this is.
But that's what I mean. Like I just didn't like where a guy of his caliber, his caliber is just like complete. Like you said, it nerfed him. He was useless.
Yeah.
Like that kid with the blue tongue was more useful than.
Yeah, I mean that's like a shit mutation to get. Your tongues are just blue.
Is that his whole mutation? Just his tongue? Like
I have no idea.
He actually just had a blue raspberry Jolly Rancher. That's just a normal kid.
And he ate Captain
why is he
Crunch,
at
so
that
his
school?
tongue was all mixed up.
His parents
just eat blue candy all the time, and then people won't even like notice.
But yeah, no, I just like I don't know because my thing is I don't this it's a good movie. Don't get me wrong, like it's a good superhero movie. I just feel like this tells a good story, but the first movie tells the story better, if that makes sense. Like I like the story in this better than the story in the first movie, but I feel like this first movie is linear and everything is like it all checks out. It's interesting. And not that this is slow, but then like they break up, like you said, they're in different locations, and it's like, all right, well, where did Cyclops go? All right, well, like, what's going on here? And then like, it's the Empire Strikes Back of it. I think that I did not like.
Yeah, where they just split everybody up.
Don't give me everybody split up, and then we all come back together at Alkali Lake that Wolverine was already at and didn't realize. Like that scene too. I just feel like he's dumb. Like he goes and he's like, "There's nothing there," and like, "No, it's underground."
Yeah, I don't get the point of that.
It's just like, well, you didn't need that.
No, there was no need.
You
I
didn't
mean,
need
just because it's just a continuation of where he leaves in the first movie. But
I think it's because they ended the first movie with him going there.
Yeah,
So
and
they had to acknowledge that he had gone there.
they had to justify the shooting on location.
And you're like, oh, this guy who has the strongest sense of smell can't smell that there are people at this abandoned facility.
But he is jacked, and Hugh Jackman.
He is jacked, man.
Since he came into the first movie 3 weeks into shooting, because there was a whole thing there with casting. He wasn't really like jacked, but he got fucking jacked for this one. That scene where he's running through the house and this cut off and attacking everybody, man. Oof. And that just started his
Yeah,
crazy diets for these.
that was
This
so
role.
hot. I mean, so cool.
It was so hot.
No, it is a crazy difference between the first movie and the second movie.
Like he's jacked, and then
And
he
then it's
continues to get more and more shredded each film.
yeah, I was gonna say it's even nuts if you look at like between this movie and like Days of Future Past. It's
What he did
ridiculous.
for the Wolverine was insane. Like he was in the best shape of his life, he said. And he's like, I'll never do it again. He's like, I just want lasagna.
Yeah, it sounds awful.
Yeah. But you get paid a lot of money, so balance
And
it
that's your
out.
job too. Like I don't feel bad really for them as much. Like
Yeah.
if I'm trying to do that while also working a 9 to 5, yeah, sure. That's brutal. My job when I'm not filming is to be in shape.
Yeah, that's what I always say too.
And
Like
I make
this is their job.
millions of
Yeah.
dollars.
Like, yeah, hey Bob, here's $40 million. Go get
Yeah.
jacked and
And
don't
it's
eat
not
good
like-
food anymore.
Here's
Okay,
$40 million.
sure.
Can you give up pizza for 9 months? I guess.
It's not like he's cooking it himself. It's not like he's working out
Yeah,
by himself.
no.
Trainers,
He's
cooks.
not paying. I mean, he might be playing.
You know what?
Groceries, but he
Fuck
probably
him.
isn't, to be honest.
You know what? Fuck him.
Fuck him.
I don't know about Fox, but Marvel is definitely like the studio's paying for all that stuff too to like get them in shape. You don't think that the studio pays for like a nutritionist and a trainer and all that?
I don't know.
Because
So
you can't just leave it up to them and be like, we
On
want you to
set,
look like
maybe.
this, look like
I
this.
think they set him. So they set them up with one sometimes because
Mhm.
they were talking about like when Chris Pratt lost all of his weight. Like they were like, you just need to get in shape. But I don't remember.
They're fucked up too. Hey, you need to stop being a fat piece of
Yeah.
shit.
Well, if you're going to be a Star Lord, you have to be in shape. But I assume yes. It's either they get paid for it once the movie's done, or like they got to pay up front and then they get reimbursed or whatever. I assume so. Shane, that would be my guess.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't think that they would just leave that up to chance that they're actually going to get in shape.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's like this role is yours as long as you stay in shape.
Yeah.
So, is there
Unless
anything?
it's the Eternals.
Yeah, unless it's the Eternals and Kingo's just going and jacked on his own.
Yeah. Hey, you got to calm down, man.
Is there anything else from this movie that we haven't discussed that you guys would like to cover?
I mean,
I just-
it's in your notes. The fact that this is the second movie and they still haven't shown a danger room.
Yeah, it was cut again. It was cut from the first movie. It was cut from like multiple drafts of this movie, and then eventually the third movie opens up with the danger room scene. Well, after there's an opening, and then you see the X-Men. But yeah, it was again danger room being this like huge thing. They wanted to scale back the budget. They wanted to like rework the budget elsewhere, and they thought people would have trouble buying into it. I think in the first one. I'm like, people are fucking buying in the Cerebro.
Yeah, that's
They're
fair.
gonna.
This guy's got blades coming out of his knuckles, but I can't. There's
Yeah.
no way they got a danger room.
Yep.
That little girl just fell through the floor, but they can't have lasers.
The basketball court opens and a jet comes out, but they can't have the danger room. Danger room's awesome though. I do like the danger room. Anything else, Shane, that we maybe haven't covered that you want to talk about?
I just wanted to note my favorite line from the movie.
Please, I want it
It's
delivered.
by Stryker, and it's why I like him so much. The scene right after he captures Xavier and he's like sitting in the chair and he comes to, he goes, "Please, Professor, no need to get up."
Well, that's such like a great Brian Cox line. Like Brian Cox plays an awesome dickhead.
Oh, he killed it in this movie.
Like in this, and then in Succession, he plays an asshole too. Like I just kind of think maybe he is an asshole, so he plays one well.
He's great in Gladiator, or no, not Gladiator. He's great in Troy.
Okay.
He's like the leader of one of the armies. I forget which one, but
Agamemnon.
he's basically Stryker from this movie, but like
Oh.
controlling an army. Like it's awesome.
That's awesome.
It's his performance in this, but like longer.
I don't think he is a dick. I think he's a good actor.
I think he's a good actor too.
He's probably a nice guy.
Yeah, he's probably
He's funny
fine.
in Super Troopers. He seems like he's a down there dude in Super
He
Troopers.
does Wendy's commercials. He's not an asshole.
Oh, then
Um,
might as well be Dave Thomas.
the one weird thing about this that it's never really talked about, it might be just a Bryan Singer thing, is when Stryker's son has Xavier trapped. I always I
That
was
was a
always
boy.
I thought it was a boy because he's a boy. But they like he's a girl.
Yeah.
So which again, nowadays, anything, sure. But like why the deliberate switch? Did he think that Xavier
I
wouldn't help a little boy?
I kind of thought that too when I was watching it. I was like, maybe he thinks, well, maybe he's in Xavier's head and he would think a little helpless girl would be more vulnerable than like a little helpless boy, and he's trying to make himself seem like as like he needs help,
Or just
like as vulnerable as
or
possible.
like to just disassociate that anything that could lead him back to the boy. So maybe having a
Yeah, or
girl
that.
doesn't remind him that his son, maybe, I don't know. It was always strange to me because I was like, is this a boy or is this a girl? Like, or it doesn't matter because it's X-Men. Like, it can be anything.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I don't know. And do you ever notice how weird Nightcrawler's fingers are? Like, because he's got the
Yeah.
three fingers. His
Yeah, he's
two
got like
middle fingers just look like a meatloaf.
he's got like Ninja Turtle hands.
Yeah, they're weird. They're super weird.
That's the only thing. If I gotta look like him, I don't want his powers.
I
I'll pass.
don't want to be a blue fuck. Yeah.
Yeah, some
It
fucking
looks kind of
freak.
fucking cool.
Yeah, he
I
looks
also
cool.
like that. Like
Try getting laid
Homecoming
looking
does
like
also in
that.
this movie. Like when he introduces himself to, I think it's like Wolverine when they're in the jet, and he's like, "Who's this guy?"
Oh yeah.
He's like, "I'm
Kirk.
Kurt." She's like, Kurt Wagner," and he's like, "But in the circus, they knew me as," and he's like, "All right, cool." Like he just like cuts him off.
Yeah, he's just like, okay, cool. That's I love. Oh God, he's so good as Wolverine, man. He is so good. The only thing that was dumb too is like the scene
They
where
call enough people bub in this movie.
Yep, he
Cut
did it.
back the bubs.
Bubs go full force in 3, I think, and further. The one thing about this movie too, I thought was dumb when Magneto and Mystique reunite with Rogue, and they're just like giggling about her hair. It was dumb.
I was all right with it. I forgot that scene. I was like,
They were giggling too much. I was like,
it's
this
just
is so.
fucked up because it's like, hey, we almost killed that girl. Look,
Yeah, he's like,
but
not.
that's why I like kind of like it because I'm like, yeah, that's kind of really fucked
Well,
up. Dude.
He's
that
such
was
a good
Magneto.
villain.
He was being a sassy bitch.
He was. You know what? I take it back. I like it. I'm like, it's still dumb to me. They were giggling
It's so dumb.
hard.
It is so dumb.
Um,
But I just thought it was funny. You know what I mean? Like I
yeah.
didn't support it. I was just like, that's a funny scene to put in. Just those two giggling about the teenager they almost killed.
Yeah, no, it's just like, I don't know. That's like a dumb thing. And I'm like, I don't know if we would necessarily see that now, but this movie doesn't pinpoint itself to lock itself into the 2000s. You could see this movie and be like, oh, this was a middle like 2010s movie.
It
Like,
didn't feel aged. Yeah,
yeah, it aged very well. I think the first one ages a little bit, slightly a little bit worse, but I do think that this movie holds up really, really well. I still think it's highly regarded by a lot of comic book fans, highly regarded, but I just like the Fox universe, I regard in a completely different view than it's weird. It's really not it's its own fault, but it's not, the people involved in this movie. It's not a Hugh Jackman thing. It's just like their X-Men were always just over there. They were just
yeah.
over there. Like,
I also
and
feel like that might be why I didn't like love this movie as much as I remember loving it. Is because like at the time there was 5 comic book movies, maybe like if that.
yeah, it was this Spider-Man, the Batman movies, and
Yeah,
then
you know what I mean, like things that I had watched, and now there's like so many where I'm like, all right, the first one really holds up as like a good story. This one, it's just like me like nitpicking almost because I've
yeah,
seen things done better at this point.
yeah,
At the time, I don't think I did that.
and their biggest mistake, I think, was going the Dark Phoenix route. Like, I just,
Right away.
you know,
So she's weird by the end of the movie too.
they wanted to
The way she
do,
pulls, where like Jean Grey is like changing. The
yeah,
way she kind of like is trying to show that, I'm just like, you're not. I don't get you.
they wanted to introduce it in the first movie. They were like, I don't think people are ready for like that storyline yet. And I'm like, nobody's ever ready because
It's too much.
it's not. You can have Jean Grey without the Phoenix. They've tried it like 3 times at this point.
It's just
Be-
one of those things that like I feel like it doesn't translate to cinema
Yeah,
because
it's
it needs to have like it needs to be done in a certain amount of time. Whereas in the comics, it's like dragged out and it makes more sense. And then when it happens, it like hits home a little bit harder. Versus
yeah,
going into the water and then you see a phoenix. It's like, oh,
it's not something that can be done in over 2 movies or a movie. You might have, if you really want to do it, you probably got to do it slowly and over 3 or 4 movies because not everything's just going to feel rushed. Like this, I don't consider this a mistake. They tried something, 3's a mistake. But what they do again in the relaunch trilogy, like the relaunch series, is a huge mistake. I don't want to see the MCU when they launch. I don't want to see them do the Dark Phoenix. What do you guys? Is there anything that was incorporated in this movie or even in the first one that you hope Marvel attempts or steers clear of? Like, what do you just hope to see from Marvel Studios taking over the X-Men, or if you just would have yourself done differently with this movie?
I just hope they get the casting down. Like, I hope they don't just like, because sometimes it feels like they're just like, oh, who's popular at the time? Let's try and get them. I hope they just get people that fit the character,
Well, let
and
me
they're not
ask you
just like
this.
what.
Let me ask you this. Have they done that yet? Is there what's like one casting where you're like, oh, this is someone who's just popular for Marvel?
I don't know, but I feel like the early days in the MCU, everyone wasn't as popular as they are now.
Well, yeah, because they a lot of the times they were looking for unknowns. Um, Captain America, they were looking for a movie star, but like I don't. There's not somebody I could pinpoint and be like, Brie Larson wasn't a movie star. Like she was in some
Hmm.
roles. She wasn't a movie star. The Eternals, maybe like with Icarus, Angelina Jolie. She's a movie. I don't know if she's a movie star, but she's a big
I don't know.
deal.
I just hope they pick
I
people
don't
that
know if she's a movie star.
Angelina Jolie at this point in her life,
But she
not lately.
was. That's the thing, right? If
Yeah,
you ever had that name, now it doesn't go away.
yeah. And if they get a superstar, they're the villain and they're one and done. Kate Blanchett, Christian Bale, Josh Brolin.
They did a really good job with Christian Bale.
Man,
yeah.
Like
I don't know.
that
I just
movie
hope they
sucked.
I just hope they pick people that
well,
like
I will
feel
say,
like they're good
you know what,
for the
Shane?
role.
To your point, the people that they have done that with are people we technically really haven't seen. With you have, was it Star Fox or which was Harry Styles
Oh yeah,
or
yeah.
whatever
I
that
feel like
fucking character.
they're just
character.
kind of forgetting that they did that. They're just like we're not going to do anything with that anymore.
And then Roy Kent as Hercules, whatever, Brett Goldstein. So those are
Yeah,
two. I could see your point. Yeah, I hope it casts well. I mean, I think these movies are perfectly cast. I think these actors are great in these roles. Bob, anything that you hope that you would have done differently? You hope to see what Marvel does, like
I,
anything.
I mean, I have my like qualms with this movie, but if I were to change it, it would change a lot. So like, it's not worth that conversation. I would,
Okay.
even though unlike you two, I do like Rogue in these movies. I would like to see Rogue used to like her fullest ability. I would like. I mean, it happens. I know it happens in the later films, but like having Kitty Pryde not just be like a throwaway name that like is thrown out in a couple of the movies, like, hey, there goes Kitty, and I'm like, all right, like let's get her involved here. Same thing, Colossus. There's characters I'd like to see take a more of a front seat than like your standard. Like if the new X-Men movie comes out and it is Cyclops, Jean Grey, Storm, and Wolverine, I'm gonna be like, that kind of stinks.
I
Like you
think
have
it's
all these people to pull from, and you
I,
use the same four every time.
I think it's going to be.
I know.
And the only reason I say that is because of the last couple years with Marvel, where they want sure hits. They took some risks, what they thought were risks.
I'm saying, but so I'm not asking for a Guardians of the Galaxy,
Oh, no, no, no. But I mean,
but
like,
you know what I mean. Like
we were
bring
always going to get Wolverine,
have a team of six, have a couple that are like lesser.
like Jubilee,
I
like,
feel like
Jubilee's in these movies. She never uses her powers.
yeah, she's
that
just
would
a
be
throwaway.
something for like a sequel. Like they're
Yeah.
gonna start with their main people, and then maybe like somewhere down the line, then they'll start bringing in some like
All
So,
right, well then
cool
have
mutants you
Beast
never
right
heard
off the
of.
bat, right? Like the newer movies all have Beast. Make sure you have Beast then.
Hmm.
I like Beast. Don't
Well,
wait forever to get Nightcrawler unless it's going to be like an origin story. Like,
well,
I
them
was
giving us
like,
Beast already makes me think we're going to have Beast.
I don't know what that was. Do you know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like,
I don't
I
fucking
don't
know either.
know. I don't have no idea how to like manage that. So
Kind of made me
you're
angry.
telling me you're gonna have Beast and it's just gonna be Kelsey Grammer, it's old ass, just playing this character again. Like, I don't know if that's.
He's hyped for it. He's so excited. He's so
I
excited
he
about it.
should be. He's a great Beast.
Yeah, but so the only reason that I think they'll nail it, well, it's because of that, whatever. But this is Feige's start. This is where Kevin Feige started. He started as an associate producer on the original X-Men movie, and he dove into the comics. He has the whole history, but this is his start. So I think that he's going to take particular care of the mutants. And yeah, I don't know, but I do think we're probably going to get a similar lineup to what we've seen. And if they do, I hope Cyclops is better. But that's just my
Give me a Gambit. You know,
Gambit for sure. 100% we're getting Gambit. 100%. Which we may get him in the Wolverine and Deadpool movie.
running
Who
through the
knows?
list, trying to figure out who else do I want to see.
Cable. I want Cable to come back.
Cable, you have to explain Cable though.
But he's in Deadpool too.
But I think they're gonna kill everybody. I think there's
Yeah,
gonna
I'm
be
saying like
That stinks because I really like Josh Brolin Cable.
yeah, but you can't have two characters in the same universe. I think it's weird.
As long as I get him in the Wolverine and Deadpool movie, that would be cool. Bring him back for that, and then if you want to kill everybody, that's fine.
You might. Uh you might get some fun teasers.
yeah, I mean,
Um,
I guess just don't take forever to add to the team.
I don't think they will. I don't think they will.
That would be it. Like, because you figure by the third they have a solid squad.
Yeah, they do. They have, and
They
it's
just because they add Beast, now they have Nightcrawler. It's just like
so on a scale of 1 to 5, what do you rate this movie?
I gave this a 3.5.
3.5. Shaney?
I'd probably go like 4.
Yeah, I went 4 as well.
I gave the first. That's why the only reason I gave this a 3.5 is because I watched the first one prior.
yeah, and I
Yeah,
gave it
see,
a
I
4.
haven't.
Did like the first one better. I gave that a 4. So I wasn't
I
gonna
haven't
give
seen the first one in a couple years.
score.
It's worth the rewatch. It's fun. There's a lot of good stuff in it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I give the first one a 4. I think they are kind of hand in hand. I think I like one. I like one a little bit better, but yeah, I think that does it for our X2 rewatch coverage. Part 2 of how I don't know how many we're gonna do. If we're just gonna stick to the X-Men movies, or if we're just gonna do everything Fox. Technically, up next should be Daredevil, but X3s will be next. Remember to rate, like, and subscribe. Check out our TeePublic, Redpublic store. I always fuck it up. Redbubble, TeePublic store for your merch. Don't put our Fox logo up there. Shane and Bob, anything to plug before we go?
No, not really right now.
No.
Masters of the Air on Apple TV is good. There, you've heard it here first.
You heard it here. I don't know when this is going to
Not,
be dropping, so I'm not plugging anything.
yeah, I was gonna say not a Fox product, but
Fox
yeah.
is dead, baby. It's 20th century now.
Not a plug,
Oh,
just something to bring up. The first couple episodes of Shogun are out on Hulu, so I'm going to be watching that soon.
I DVR. I sent my DVR.
it's
Yeah,
on Hulu right away.
I'm excited for that.
Oh, it is.
I saw that it was like an hour and 20 minutes. I was like, maybe not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna check it out. Especially because I've been playing Ghost, so it's like hand in hand. It'll be pretty fun watch.
I'm curious. I just don't know when I'm gonna watch it. If that makes sense.
I don't really have
Yeah,
anything.
them being hour-long episodes definitely is a little bit of a deterrent because I don't know when I'm going to be able to sit down and watch that. Like the
Just take it
45-minute is a little easier.
Just take it in parts. Do it in like little half-hour segments.
I don't like doing that though. I like watching stuff all the way through because then I watch half and then I forget what happened in the first half, and then I feel like I'm
You know what you
lost.
should do? You should watch the first 30 minutes and then make like a 10-second voice memo of reminding yourself of what you just watched.
It would just be cool samurai shit. That's all it would be.
Yeah, sometimes it's gonna be like background noise for me.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh look, they're fighting again.
Yeah.
Just swords clashing while you're doing something else.
No, I'm looking forward to that for sure. I don't really have anything to plug.
Up your butt.
No.
Joke's on you, Bobby. Already did that before we started recording.
Dude, I might need to after what I did to that bathroom. I'm no better than Striker.
Stick around for our end credit scene to find out what that was.
Yeah.
Yeah, just continue to
That
watch
was
these
the
movies.
mega mutant level stuff I did in that bit.
Yuck. Continue to follow along with us as we watch these films. And that's all I have to plug. Thank you all for listening. I know it's been some time. I hope you stay subscribed. We haven't put an episode out in quite some time, but we like to do fun stuff like this every now and again. So remember to rate, like, and subscribe, and follow us on all the socials. And let us know what your favorite X-Men character or movie is. Bye, everyone.
Real quick, RP, you can keep going for a minute. My dinner is dinnering right now, like in my system. So
Okay.
I'm gonna just run to the bathroom real fast.
Okay.
Just don't
All
know
right.
how long I'll be here.
All right. Sounds
All
good. So all
You're gonna
right,
keep that in, right?
I'm probably gonna put it at the end. Yeah. I'll cut it and put it at the as a little end credit.